The highlight of the lecture will be a major lecture to commemorate the 10th anniversary of his death in July, the month in which he died. The activities will also include infrastructure projects, sporting activities, academic scholarships, especially in the areas of law and taxation, will also be arranged. Nana Chairman, I would like at this stage to pay a glowing tribute to all those who have contributed to bring the heritage into existence and to make this launch a reality. In particular, I would like to mention the Heritage Concept Group that met on the 24th of July, 2021, to give birth to this organization. The members of the Heritage Planning Committee, the individuals and groups who contributed so generously to make this launch such a remarkable success. Nana Chairman, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, a man who knew President Mills very well will be delivering the keynote address at this launch, during which I'm sure we will all be served with further and better particulars of the lives and times of President John Evans Atta Mills. I will therefore at this juncture conclude by saying that it is my singular honor and pleasure to invite the former President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, who was also Vice President to President John Evans Atta Mills, to make a few remarks and to unveil the logo of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage. I thank you very much for your attention. Your Excellency.
Former President John Dramani Mahama, as he makes his way up the stage. Yeah, let's keep the applause flowing, please. Thank you. To make a few remarks and then unveil the logo of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage.
I don't know what it is about beards. It looks like Kafui has grown a beard. I just saw Segwefia Alex has also grown a beard. I don't know whether it's time to grow a beard myself. But it looks like that's what's in fashion. Myself and Prof were very clean shaven and I've continued to maintain that tradition. Nana Chairman, the Advisory Council and Governing Board of the Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage, representative of His Excellency, the former President John Ajekum Kufuor, representative of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, representative of the Chief Justice, representative of who else? Looks like everybody is represented. Her Excellency, the former Second Lady of the Republic of Ghana, Matilda Emisata, and let me stand on the protocols so well established by the chairman of the board of the Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage. There's so many people that it will take more time to acknowledge everybody. I want to thank you, Mr. Alex Segwefia. And many of us have forgotten that your middle name is Percival. As chairman of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage, for the invitation on behalf of the Board of Directors to unveil and launch the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage logo. Appropriately, the heritage seeks to inspire humanity for a better society, a virtue that President Atta Mills lived and died for. Professor John Evans Atta Mills simply was a good man. It therefore gladdens the hearts of many millions of people who loved him that this decision was taken to launch the Atta Mills Heritage here on the campus of our alma mater, the University of Ghana. This is because it was right here on these very hallowed university grounds, the hill of knowledge and the nation's hope and glory, where we are taught to proceed in integrity and truth, that Professor John Evans Atta Mills honed his distinct values, and also laid the foundation for the ultimate mantle of leadership that God placed on him in the latter stages of his life. He earned his enviable reputation on this very campus even before his call to higher office. Professor Mills left a lasting legacy here on this campus through his teaching, his mentoring, rigorous intellectual endeavor, and physical activity through sports. As a matter of course, Prof became an organic part of this university's history. He lived by the ethos of integrity that the university advocates when he eventually entered national politics as vice president and ultimately as president of the Republic of Ghana. These values never deserted him. Unfortunately, this philosopher king and servant leader of a president did not live with us as long as we would have wished. On that dull and hazy, overcast day of 24th July 2012, death unexpectedly snatched him from us, leaving a shocked nation in sorrow, anguish, and in tears. And my following reminiscences are the first time I'm talking publicly of this sad event. That fateful day, I had been alerted that I would be asked to act because Prof was likely to travel to Nigeria. I was informed by his secretary, Sir James Bebako-Mensah, that he had requested specifically that I stand in for him at the official launch of the Brand Ghana project, which was to take place at the International Conference Center. I attended that function with the Chief of Staff, Mr. John Martin Newman. Upon our return to the castle, which at that time was still then the seat of government, as I proceeded to my office, I asked Chief of Staff Martin Newman to inform Prof that I was going to cross over and see him to discuss a few important issues after meeting with a former president who was waiting in my office. Moments after our return, the Chief of Staff called me frantically and said that Prof had been rushed to the 37 Military Hospital in an emergency. I wrapped up my meeting with the former president and prepared my staff to rush to the hospital. It was then that Sir James Bebako-Mensah entered my office and delivered the devastating news. Prof dead. How? How can Prof die? Were the questions I asked. The world came to a standstill. Nothing in my political life and experience had prepared me for a moment like this. The shelter of working under Prof had been a wonderful experience. His death left me in trepidation of stepping up to the plate, realizing the huge responsibility one was stepping into, and that the buck was going to stop with me and no one else. The swearing-in ceremony was a blur, and I struggled to complete my acceptance speech without breaking down in front of a sorrowful nation. When I left the podium, I missed my way back and went and sat back in my vice presidential seat until the uproar from the MPs reminded me that I had sworn the presidential oath and should move to the ceremonial presidential seat. The rest is history, to be narrated at another appropriate time. Professor Mills was my boss, my comrade, my mentor, and my friend. He was tolerant, he was kind, he was fair, but he was firm. I'm proud to have honed my political skills at his feet. I know there are many also who revere Professor Mills as their teacher and their mentor. He taught in this university for over 25 years and contributed to producing many astute legal practitioners from the Faculty of Law, and also contributed in producing many fine business minds from the then School of Administration, which is now the University of Ghana Business School. Our gathering here today to celebrate once again a man who sacrificed his very life from humanity for academia, for his country, and above all, for his God, for Jesus Christ, is proper and befitting. I believe the launch of the Atta Mills Heritage, which is anchored on his values and principles and is aimed at inspiring humanity, including the youth of Africa and Ghana, for a better society, will further emphasize his legacy. Already, Prof's name is befittingly assigned to a significant number of national infrastructure across the country. These include the John Evans Atta Mills High Street in Accra, the FPSO John Evans Atta Mills, which extracts oil from the 10 fields, which are both named after him. Similarly, the Community Day Senior High School in his home area, Otium, which happens to have been the first of the E-Block initiatives to be completed, which I had the privilege as president to have commissioned and named after him. Here at the University of Ghana, the School of Law's modern building is named after both Professor Ekuya Kunyehine and Professor Atta Mills in appreciation of their collaborative effort in the construction of the edifice and their remarkable contribution to the teaching of law in Ghana. While I was serving as Prof's Vice President and as head of his economic management team, President Mills grew Ghana's economy to a level that remains unprecedented. Borrowing his own words, in 2011, that year Ghana's economy grew by over 14%, the highest in the world, with both non-oil and oil growth contributing equitably to this feat. Typical of him, even before this growth would be realized, the gracious professor had earlier paid homage to his predecessors in his first State of the Nation address to Parliament in February 2009. In the chair at the time was the Right Honorable Joyce Bamford Addo, Ghana's first and so far only female Speaker of Parliament, nominated by President Mills in his quest for gender parity. And I quote him here. He said, "Madam Speaker, Kwame Nkrumah laid the foundation for oil and gas exploration in Ghana. J. John Rawlings created the institutional framework for its exploration and exploitation. The oil and gas was struck in commercial quantities in the period of John Agyekum Kufuor. Actual commercial exploitation is beginning in the period of John Evans Atta Mills. And in between us mentioned are others who played a very important part. Prof was the one to share credit and glory. Nana Che, this is the man we celebrate today. Magnanimous, gender sensitive, a unifier, peaceful, and above all, God-fearing. As a Pan-Africanist, he never hid his distress over historical and contemporary exploitation of Africa, which propelled the growth of Europe and America, leaving Africans in poverty. Therefore, as president, he was determined to use the oil and gas wealth for the greater benefit of Ghanaians, for Ghana and all Ghanaians, irrespective of our backgrounds. And this is why he passed the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, the PRMA, through which the ABFA, the Annual Budget Funding Account, the Heritage Fund, the Stabilization Funds were created. These have helped us immensely in managing our oil revenues, and even only recently during the COVID, it was money accumulated under my administration in the Stabilization Fund created by Professor Mills that was used to provide funds for financing government's initial response to the pandemic. As a social democrat who believed in social justice, he laid a robust foundation for the socio-economic advancement of Ghana. President Mills purposely invested in Ghana's greatest assets, the citizens, particularly its youth. Seeing great potential in Ghana's future through education, he encouraged the study of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, through the Mathematics, Science, and Technology Scholarship Scheme, which was named Masters for secondary and tertiary students. He also actively involved eminent scientists in his quest for science education, research and development, and innovation for national development. His partners in this endeavor included Professor Emeritus Francis Nkrumah, son of the founder and first president of our republic, Professor Irama Adi, the first Ghanaian female professor of natural science, and also his friend Professor Francis Kofi Ampenyi Alote. As president, Professor Mills increased the capitation grants introduced by President Ajekum Kufuor by 50%. He enhanced the school feeding program and embarked on an ambitious construction of infrastructure in secondary schools across the country. Under his leadership, the University of Health and Allied Sciences, UHAS, in the Volta region, and the University of Energy and Natural Resources, UNER, in the Brong-Ahafo region were established. In the health sector, President Atta Mills also equipped our National Emergency Response System with the importation of 160 new ambulances and initiated numerous health infrastructure projects across the country. These included the 100-bed hospital with a malaria research center at Teshi, the rehabilitation of the Tamale Teaching Hospital and the Adenta Community Hospital, and several other polyclinics and health centers. Prof was also very witty. He could provide on the spur of the moment intelligent answers that could make you smile or laugh. As the chairman recalled, and I hope you all recall, the issue of many ways of killing a cat. A judgment in the courts had gone against government, and our chairman at the time, Kwabena J, was ranting against the judiciary, and the issue about many ways of killing a cat came up. A journalist asked President Atta Mills at a press conference about it, and his savvy and witty response was, "Look at me, come closer. Do I look like a cat hunter?" He believed in the genuine and true independence of the judiciary and was ready and willing to protect the judiciary and the justice delivery system at all costs. I'm sure you also recollect the Ziwu Fiasem during the Ivorian crisis. This was also pregnant with humor. But most importantly, it's a statement that requires interdisciplinary research into the origins and nuanced meaning of the rich Fanti proverb, Ziwu Fiasem. Prof detested comrades undermining each other. He had a practice of detaining the person who had come to make a negative report about a colleague to him. He detained you in his office. He quickly had the colleague about whom the report had been made brought to his office quickly. He then asked the one who had made the report to repeat what he had just told him. And in Ghanaian parlance, we say, "Come and see stammering." Nana Chairman, my brothers and sisters, these and many more recollections of this inspirational son of the land are the reasons Prof was and still loved by so many. For those familiar with the anthem of this great university where President Atta Mills studied and worked, you realize the earlier part of my speech drew on our motto, Integri Procedamus, to wit, proceeding in integrity. Integrity sounded loudly and was defined by Prof in all he did. As I conclude, I call on each one of us Ghanaians to uphold truth and integrity and the peaceful nature of Prof. Let us stay united, even in the face of adversity. Let us uphold tolerance. Yes, we must endeavor to proceed in unity and in truth. We must also strive to defend the cause of freedom, and we must fervently uphold the public cause to protect our democracy. This is why Legon, the hallowed ground upon which we stand today, always calls on her products and all Ghanaians to arise and arise and arise to defend the cause of freedom and proceed in truth and integrity to make our nation proud. Refreshingly, these attributes of the University of Ghana intersect harmoniously with President Mills's personal values. His quest for peace, for which he was named Asundwehene, his quest for excellence and integrity, transparency and accountability, commitment to the well-being of all Ghanaians, and inclusivity. I'm glad the heritage seeks to build on from where he left off in a non-partisan manner. Above all, these values are what made Professor Mills a true Ghanaian. He embodied that ideal Ghanaians yearn for to collectively transform our country. Let his values lead us. Professor Mills was such a moral and political colossus, and there can be no limits put on the vehicles and instruments that eulogize and ingrain his memory and history in the hearts and minds of Ghanaians. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege and honor to be joined to do the unveiling of the logo by Sami Atta Mills and the chairman of the board of the Atta Mills Memorial Heritage. I thank you very much. And God bless us all. Mills Memorial Heritage is duly launched. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Winneba Youth Choir, I think we all quite like the remix of the song. Really nice. And thank you, His Excellency, for your remarks and for unveiling the logo. So I see the book, the hockey sticks, and the stool, representative of the man we are here to remember. Few acknowledgements of all of you who are here. Professor Kwesi Botre, we're happy to have you here. Commodore Steve Bimpe, it's good to have you here. Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, Madam Faustina Nelson, Madam Valerie Sawyer, Professor Joshua Alabi. We have Minority Leader in Parliament, Haruna Drisu, MP, Chairman Samuel Ofosu Ampofo, General Secretary Johnson Asiedu Nketia, Madam Sherry Aite, Senana Brew Butler, Sylvester Mensah, Charlotte Osei, former boss of the Electoral Commission. Happy birthday to you, by the way. And Josephine Nkrumah, boss of the National Commission for Civic Education. Yes, they all deserve a big round of applause. And now for a presentation on John Evans Atta Mills. The family man is a relative, a brother, MP for Commander Edina Eguafu Abrim, KEEA, Samuel Atta Mills, MP. We're live on Wezo TV, on Metro TV, TV3 as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Former President, I've also grown a beard. And in my case, in my constituency, somebody came to me with a daughter and said, "Hey, have you grown a beard?" And what the daughter is, "Daddy, maybe he doesn't have money to buy a blade." So I will keep my political beard. Mr. Chairman, Nana Kobnan Kasia V, Paramount Chief of Esikado Traditional Area, His Excellency President Ejekum Kufuor's representative, His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, the representative of His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, distinguished guests, members of the Diplomatic Corps, honorable members of Parliament, the members of the governing board of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage, and I stand on all existing protocols established. My brothers and sisters, it is always an immense pleasure for the family when we are asked to define or introduce the man, John Evans Atta Mills, who also happened to be the husband, father, a favorite brother, a favorite uncle, a favorite cousin, a favorite grand uncle, a favorite great grand uncle. I hope you noticed the insertion of the word favorite. After all, we are all entitled to a little bit of revisionist history. Few families can boast of such an illustrious relative, and it's only befitting that we elevate him to the status he so richly deserves. The mission of John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage is to immortalize and enhance the ideals, values, works of the iconic relative Professor Mills as they relate to his passion for inclusivity, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability. In this short message, we will attempt to explain the origins, the conditions, and the unique family circumstances that shaped Professor Mills's beliefs, ideals, and values. Brother Fifi, as the family usually referred to him, was the second child and the first son of Master John Evans Atta Mills Sr., a school teacher and later a tutor at Commander Training College, and Miss Mercy Dawson Amoa. He was followed by 5 younger siblings, and from the very early years, Brother Fifi was tasked by his father to be an exemplary scholar, an accomplished academic, and a role model worthy of the name conferred on him. For Master John Evans Atta Mills Sr., a Methodist, believed strongly in the Protestant ethic of hard work, self-discipline, honesty, accountability, disdain for laziness, debauchery, and abstention from all that is good in life and makes life worth living, if I may add. As a student, Brother Fifi did not disappoint. In his dealings with others, Brother Fifi was scrupulously honest and will account for every penny entrusted to him. He loved to play every game that involved a ball: hockey, table tennis, soccer, cricket, and even lawn tennis. He was empathetic, gravitated towards people, and was quick to recognize and forgive the weaknesses of others. He was generous to a fault and would readily share with those he perceived, and sometimes very wrongly, to be less well off than he was. In this sense, Brother Fifi was the perfect blend of our ambitious and disciplined father and empathetic, caring, and nurturing mother. He was who he was because his parents were who they were. And an apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Brother Fifi had an absolutely no sense of appreciation for the concept of nuclear family. For one, he had no playmates among his own siblings who were either too young, like me, or the wrong gender, like my sisters, or most annoying, my brother Cadman. I will hear from him later. His immediate brother thought that the Hearts of Oak and Manchester United were the pits, preferring Baba Yara's Asante Kotoko and Stanley Matthews' Blackpool to those two teams any day. For another, Brother Fifi had many other choices of playmates. The Atta Mills household was always had a number of cousins from the paternal side from whom he could recruit for many of his football teams that he formed. Much as we would like to claim him as exclusively ours, we have to admit that Brother Fifi indeed had many families. In addition to the 2 nuclear families, his Legon family, his law faculty family, his amalgamated clubs family, his Hearts of Oak family, his hockey, the veterans family, his Cape Coast, Nkuma, Chirba, Tridan, Ebusian family, his Kaneshi, the Dawson, Datsun family, his Medina family, the Adequays, his NDC family. Did I miss out Achimota family? That was for a good point. And last but not the least, easily identifiable Otom family. Many of these families, including the main speaker at this lunch, Mr. Kwame Pieni, were not necessarily of the National Democratic Congress persuasion, but such were the strengths of the relationship that he developed that many claim as uniquely theirs and the sole architects of his success in life. It remains, however, that Brother Fifi truly valued all the relationships, and to him all Ghanaians were brothers and sisters. In his latter years, Brother Fifi became a devoutly religious man, a devoted Christian who believed in personal responsibilities and redemptions. He believed that the world would be a better place if we all committed to the teachings of Jesus Christ, cared for the poor and those among us with special needs, and treated others as we would want them to treat us. But as we have seen, Brother Fifi was not simply the product of his personal beliefs, character, and faith. He was also a product of his environment, his family, the situations around him, the opportunities open to him, the expectations of others, and what was considered acceptable behavior by his parents, family, friends, and teammates. I'm convinced that in his last years, he had come to appreciate that not all lapses in governance, like lack of integrity, inclusiveness, transparency, and accountability, can be attributed to the personal failings in character, judgment, and or personal choice. Brother Fifi always decried the extreme partisanship that currently characterizes the Ghanaian body politics. He was also a strong advocate for systematic reforms, starting with constitution reform to render Parliament a truly independent third branch of government. As a sportsman, Brother Fifi was a stickler for rules and regulations that encourage fair play, but also punish bad behavior. As we celebrate the ideals, values, honesty, modesty, and servant leadership, let us also not forget that he was also deeply committed to fundamental reforms in procurement, politicians and political appointees, out of contract evaluations, awards and negotiations, campaign finance reforms to eliminate pay to play, emoluments reform to put an end to the gifts to the public office holders and political party organizations, funding, reporting, requirements, and auditing of accounts to render the funding of political parties and activities as transparent as possible. Doing the right thing in the context of laws, rules, and regulations that mandate and reward transparency, accountability, and service to the people is what we would like to believe is a legacy of Professor John Evans Atta Mills. May his memory and heritage be a blessing, and may he continue to rest in perfect peace. Thank you.
Many thanks to Samuel Atta Mills, MP for KEEA in the Central Region. And for those of you just joining us online, well, welcome to the launch of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage. We will now look at the screens and view a documentary on the man, John Evans Atta Mills, 10 years on.
President John Evans Evans Atta Mills presided over Ghana at a time when world economies had just been plunged into the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression of the 1930s. Through visionary leadership and direction, he was able to steer the nation through tumultuous times and oversaw the nation's rise as one of the best performing economies in Africa.
His love of country and what he wanted to do for Ghana, the importance that he placed in using his political power to alter the lives of people in Ghana, to bring into governance a certain amount of accountability, to use public resources to build productive and social amenities to help improve the lives of people. This, I think, is something that we have to call the unfinished legacy of John Evans Atta Mills.
In 2011, Ghana became the fastest growing economy in the world at 20.15% according to the International Monetary Fund.
We are certainly very pleased under the program that Ghana has with the IMF to see the good progress that have been made. We have a close cooperation. We do our reviews on a regular basis, and we are extremely satisfied that progress, very good progress, is being made.
Born in Takwa in 1944, the young John Evans was a brilliant man who dedicated his time to studies and sports, excelling in both fields. Upon completing his secondary school education at Achimota College, John Evans Atta Mills entered the University of Ghana, where he completed his Bachelor of Law degree. He went on to further his studies at the London School of Economics and Political Science, where he obtained an LLM in 1968 and further obtained his PhD in law at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London at the tender age of 27. After completing his doctoral thesis in the field of taxation, he returned to the University of Ghana, where he spent close to 25 years teaching until he was appointed Commissioner of the IRS, owing to his extensive work in the field of taxation. After serving as Vice President, he was given the nod to represent the National Democratic Congress as the presidential candidate in the year 2000. He lost the bid, and again in 2004. Even while out of office, he remained a strong political force that kept the government on its toes and spoke out on many occasions for the ordinary Ghanaian. After winning the very closely contested election of 2008, his inaugural speech on January the 7th, 2009 did well to calm tensions and unify a society that appeared polarized.
We intend to pursue a consensus-driven agenda, and in building the consensus, we shall give due recognition to the contributions by our compatriots from the other political parties. As I have always said, I will be president for all Ghanaians, whether they voted for me or not. And irrespective of their political persuasion and the parts of the country that they come from, I will heal wounds and strive to ensure the unity of our country.
Such was the character of his presidency, and it was for this reason that the people gave him the title of Asomdwoehin, the King of Peace. He preached a message of peace and worked diligently, laying out his vision of how the nation would be governed politically and economically towards the achievement of prosperity and dignity for Ghanaians. His prudent leadership yielded reduction in inflation and stabilized the Ghanaian cedi. Inflation came down to 8.4% in 2010 from a high of 18.1% in December 2008. This was indicative of prudent fiscal and monetary policy measures that characterized his presidency to put the economy in healthy shape. He established the Heritage Fund that was meant to save up Ghana's oil revenues for the benefit of future generations. He also implemented the single spine salary structure to increase compensation to workers. In a bid to improve efficiency in revenue collection, President Mills established the Ghana Revenue Authority, which integrated the Value-Added Tax (VAT) Service, Customs, Excise and Preventive Service (CEPS), and the Internal Revenue Service (IRS) into a single collaborative unit. All this he did in his 3.5-year run as President of the nation that dearly loved him until death knocked at his door on the 24th of July 2012, just 3 days after his 68th birthday. His short run as president provided the world with insight into the qualities of a noble leader and statesman. He left a legacy of peace, tolerance, respect for office, and a blueprint for selfless leadership.
A great look back on the life of a great man, Professor John Evans Atta Mills. We have 3 thematic areas which will be presented by 3 distinguished speakers. But just before that, I'd just like to recognize quickly the presence of the European Union representative here. We have 2 former chiefs of staff, Messrs. Prosper Bunny and Julius Deborah. Mr. Ivor Greenstreet was the flag bearer for the CPP. He's here with us as well. And Mr. E.T. Mensah is on the Council of State. You're all welcome to this event. And briefly, I would just like to add Ambassador Victor Smith, who is also here with us. And we have a glitter of generals, General I.B. Quartey, General Blay, former CDS, General Kusi. And thank you so much, generals, for making it here. Dr. Don Arthur is here with us. Honorable Seth Tekbe, Honorable Ni Ama Ashite, Honorable Fifi Kwete, and I will come back with a few more when I do get them. So Professor Mills represented 3 areas of life: academia, sports, and governance. And the first of our thematic presentations will be done by a person who is currently the Dean of the Law Faculty at the UPSA. His fields are constitutional law, and formerly he was in charge of the faculty, the school at GIMPA. Let's put our hands together for the first presenter on academia, which represented a part of Professor Mills's life, Professor Kofi Abuchi. And this is a thematic presentation on Professor Mills and legal education.
Nana Chair, Excellency, the former President of the Republic of Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama, Representative of the President of the Republic of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, Representative of His Lordship, the Chief Justice, Justice Yoni Kolendi, Members of Parliament, Honorable Members of Parliament, Nananum Name Nime, all other distinguished protocols observed. Today we remember a towering academic figure, a path-breaking author, and a prolific teacher who taught generations. As a teacher, I wasn't lucky to be one of his students, having entered the University of Ghana in the mid-90s when he was no more teaching at the law school. But the multitude of testimonies vindicate his work of a quarter of a century when he birthed many who occupy positions straddling the private and public spheres of Ghana's space. Yet in the guise of politics, many of his students called him names. Professor Atta was a teacher, according to testimonies of many, who understood the law and taught with a simplicity and ease of understanding. He was a teacher par excellence, and very few people I've met who are either lawyers or who passed through the School of Administration and who were ahead of me would not have testified to having been taught by Professor Atta. As a scholar, Professor Atta was an author who blazed the trail on commercial law, tax law, and investment law, publishing in the most respected journals across the world. An external acknowledgement stands to his blazing memory on the website of Stanford Law Magazine, which is a fitting tribute to one of the finest African scholars to have walked the halls of that great university. Professor Atta had an interdisciplinary understanding of the law. He perhaps is the only law lecturer of the law school who is known more by people who were hardly law students, but who have gone through the School of Administration. That represents a testament to his understanding of the law from an interdisciplinary perspective and the fact that the law doesn't exist in a silo. The fertility of his knowledge in law meant that Professor Atta published widely in diverse aspects of law, and few people know this, including criminal law. A few of his publications included Taxation of Periodical or Deferred Payment Arising from the Sale of Fixed Assets, published in 1974, Exemption of Dividends from Income Taxation, a Critical Appraisal, published in 1977, a report of the Tax Review Commission of Ghana, Parts 1 to 3, published in 1977, Ghana's Income Tax Laws and Investors, published in 1978, Ghana's New Investment Code and Appraisal, one of his most notable publications, published in 1986, Criminal Law, Treatment of Sexual Activity, The Role of the State in the Evolution of the Family in Anglophone Countries of Africa, an overview, a survey of taxes on individual in Ghana, Ghana's wealth tax, some issues and problems, Africa in the world, NEPAD and the new international relations, the doctrine of regional fission nation, the case of Ghana and West Africa, among others. His academic and intellectual standing has been widely acknowledged and remained too numerous to deserve specific mention. It is notable, however, to mention the award that was conferred by the Institute of International Education, IIE, in New York City, which posthumously bestowed on him its highest award, the Fritz Redlich Alumni Award, in recognition of, quote, his distinguished career and exemplary leadership that increased cooperation and understanding between Ghana and the world, and his resolute support for advancing education to prepare an entire generation in Ghana for today's competitive global economy. The award was further to honor him as the first ever Fulbright scholar to become the head of state of an African nation by becoming the president of Ghana. Professor Atta was a teacher of teachers, and many students, leaders, and others passed through his classes. He was an early advocate for reforms in legal education, specifically the methodology for teaching in order to enhance global competitiveness and the challenges confronting our world today. For a profession in need of mentorship and academic leadership, Professor Atta life as a teacher, scholar, and jurist was characterized by the silvery hallmarks of humility, intellectual deference, and respect for the other. A sharp contrast to the pomposity and self-adulation of our time. Professor Atta Mills was a man who understood the law and the ins and outs of the law. He was one revered by many, and those who loved him speak of him publicly and testify to his greatness in the law. Those who do not so much love him privately admire him and are not shy to admit of the fact that as a man, and indeed a lot of things have been said about his other parts, but as a man, he was as distinguished in the law as he was in the area of public service, for which all of us as Ghanaians today celebrate him. It is a testament to his lasting legacy that the legal academy of today are striving to remain not only relevant, but competitive in the world. His publications inspired me as a young student at the time, a man I never met, but one I admired from afar, and of course, once became the president of Ghana, I had the pleasure of seeing him regularly on TV. I was deeply honored when I was asked to speak in the stead of Professor Kwenye here on this august occasion, and I have to be honest, I did not hesitate for a minute, because I was going to have the golden opportunity to stand before the very great men of our country, not least of which certainly we all know we have our former president today here. Professor Atta Mills will be remembered in the pantheon of the Legal Academy, not so much because he died in office, but indeed as a testament to one of the greatest academics who walks the halls of the University of Ghana, Faculty of Law, where I was also honored to be a student. And the landlady of the university, the Vice Chancellor herself, has spoken of him. It is to this that I'm honored to pay glowing tribute to the lasting memory of Professor Atta Mills, and particularly to his legacy as a law teacher. And I'm honored today and inspired as one of the people he has mentored from afar to have also become an academic. And having taught in the University of Ghana for 25 years, I do also look forward to the opportunity of being in the academy for at least 25 years. Thank you.
Many thanks, Professor of Constitutional and Comparative Law and Dean of UPSA Law School, Professor Kofi Abochi, for revealing some hitherto unknown gems from Professor Atta Mills. Thank you so much for that. From one professor to another, and this next speaker will be doing a thematic presentation on Professor John Evans Atta Mills and sports development. He's a former pro-vice chancellor of this great university, a four-time Olympian, and a British Academy Global Professor at Oxford University. Let's welcome Professor Francis Dodo.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. His Excellency, President John Mahama, representative of His Excellency John Ajikun Kufuor, representative of our current President, Nana Akufo-Addo, Nana Chairman, traditional leaders of our land, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to stand on the protocol that has preceded me. Like my preceding brother who just spoke, when I received the opportunity through a call to speak today, I was amazed. I didn't realize that I would rise to the top of a list that would get an opportunity to speak in honor of this very great man. I do not know whether I will be able to make it through this speech. I have just returned a week ago from the 1-week celebration of my mother's passing. My father's anniversary was 3 days ago. My wonderful Auntie Esther's birthday was 2 days ago.
she also has passed. And the opportunity to talk about Professor Mills at the time when I received it, it was 2 or 3 days before I was supposed to leave the shores of our land. But it was such an opportunity to declare what I feel about this man that I essentially changed my travel plans, thinking that I would be able to sort of elucidate the relationship that I had with him, what I learned from him about sports and life. But just listening to the words that have been spoken ahead of me, watching the videos that we have watched, I fear that I might not make it through. But nevertheless, we've been given a few minutes to talk about a man who was very peculiar, very unique, very distinctive, and as we've heard this evening, extremely distinguished. This is a gentleman par excellence. We've heard this phrase already today. Indeed, when I heard that I had 4 minutes to speak about him, I, in the words of a dear friend of mine, thought it was a bit of a joke, because this is a man that I could speak about continuously for 24 hours and more. But I'm praying that you will bear with me as an audience. Professor John Evans Atta Mills, Prof as we called him. My first recollection of meeting him was right on this campus. My father worked on this university campus. And as an early adolescent, I must have been 11 or 12 when he moved next door to us. And our homes, well, my parents' homes and his and Auntie Nadu's homes were about 70 meters apart. And so every evening, he and my father had gelled in the sense that my father was a tax historian and Professor Mills was a tax lawyer, essentially. There was 16 years between my father and him, and 16 years between him and I. And literally 3 or 4 evenings a week, him and my father would be discussing things on our back stoop or on his back stoop, like I said, 70 meters away. And I had the benefit of sitting at the feet of these two men who were very similar in terms of their principles and their views about right and wrong and their love for sport. It wasn't long thereafter when Professor Mills and I ended up playing on the same hockey team. And initially it was the OAA, the Old Achimotans hockey team, and then we both became veterans, and this was when I was about 17. Yeah, I aged very quickly. But he became my ride, my vehicle of opportunity to the national hockey pitch or to the 37 hockey pitch when there was one, or wherever else we were supposed to be training that week. And what I learned from those twice, maybe sometimes thrice a week trips was an opportunity to sit at his feet and learn from his wisdom, from his articulation of what we should be doing as people, as students, as men and women, as Ghanaians, what we should be doing to make sure that our country went right. After hockey matches or after hockey practice, we would start that trip that went either to Dansoman or to Medina, where he would visit family and he would impart his knowledge and advice and wisdom on things. And I happened to tag along and hear all of these things. By the time I was 18 or 19 at the University of Ghana, Professor Mills was the head of the Amalgamated Clubs. That's the body that oversees sport in the university. And so in that sense, he was my boss, he was my manager, he was the one who decided what we did, where we traveled, how we should behave, and what discipline should be inflicted when at that age we misbehaved. And again, it was quite a wonderful opportunity to get mentored by a man whose principles have been spoken about today in ways that I'm not sure I could speak about anybody else that I know. Prof was a stalwart in ensuring that things went the way they should. And when my father passed away, my mother just passed. When my father passed away, Prof became an executor of my father's will and ensured that my mother was taken care of the way that she was supposed to be. At the end of 1980, this was in the era where universities were closing. There was a lot of disruption because of the coup situation. I had got an opportunity to take a scholarship, an athletic scholarship, and go to the United States. And I wanted to stay in Ghana. And it was Professor Mills who essentially talked me into seeing the wisdom of using this opportunity to develop aspects of your person that then can help you make a contribution later in life. Sports was truly a big part of who he was, but what I wanted to say today in principle was that for him, sports was a vehicle for mentoring youth, making sure that youth developed in ways that they were supposed to, ways that would help their families and their country benefit. And so he recognized the platform that sport provided to improve people's discipline, their leadership abilities, the excellence that you strive for when you're trying to become a champion. He recognized the self-confidence that came from participating in sports, the teamwork that committing to a team in sports brought about. Fair play has already been mentioned today. Playing by the rules was integral to understanding how we work within the rubric of structures that are national or regional or university-wide. Goal setting, hard work, the pain and sweat and toil that you go through to try to become a champion. And perhaps most important of all, he told me, was learning how to lose. Because if you learn how to lose in any aspect of your life, and it's something that happens very frequently in sport. If you've played sport as much as I have, you've probably lost at least 1 million times across the various sports that you play. And what it does is it teaches you that losing isn't the end of the world. Losing simply takes you back to the place where you have to try and understand what you didn't do appropriately, restructure, and get back into the game. And so when you see our Black Stars players, and I'm sorry to bring this up since they've just come back home, but when you see them shaking hands with the Comoros Islands players, recognize that even though they do not look unhappy as we spectators, they are unhappy, but they're so used to losing that they don't express their unhappiness. And I know that didn't come out the way I meant it. But they're so used to it that they don't express their unhappiness with losing by burying themselves in a sorrowful mood. The very next minute, they're already thinking about, congratulations, but the next time we meet, I'm going to beat you. That's what you learn from losing that much in sport. I remember when the under-20 soccer team, our national team, actually went out and won the World Cup in, I believe it was 2009. Now, when Prof was talking to us about the kinds of rewards that we give to our teams that excel, one of the points he made was that it was very critical that when you're rewarding people who are that age, 20 and below, you think about what's going to happen to them in the future. And a significant part of the bonus that he gave them was this investment bonds that he made us open for them for their futures. So for Prof, sports was a perfect vehicle for mentoring people, in that he recognized it as a platform on which youth could enhance their life chances, that the lessons that they learn through sport translate into life productivity and into success in professions, even beyond simply getting a job at SEPS or the police services or anywhere else. I am been told I had 5 minutes. So in wrapping up, I wanted to share 10 of the life lessons that I learned through sport from Professor Mills. The first one was that we needed to think of ways to lift up our youth, to help them get a real chance to succeed in life. And like I said, sport was a platform that lent itself so easily to that. But Prof's concern was mainly that for those of us who have children at home, we do everything, we sacrifice everything to make sure that our children get further than we do. And yet, when we have children at work, for example, if we are lecturers and we have children, like students under us, it's not necessarily the same attitude that we take. In a lot of instances, we actually try to suppress them and make them work much harder than we make our own children work at home. And so for him, it was important that we try to ensure that the children that we come into contact with in our classrooms and on our sports teams and whatnot had the same understanding about their needs that we gave our own children at home. The second one was about excellence, perfection. You come into sport, and he used to say that if you ever went into a game where you didn't think you could win, it was time to leave the sport. You had to try to win every single game fairly, properly, legally, but you had to try to win every single game. And it's this quest for excellence, this quest for success was even more important than the winning itself. Once he equated to sin, we've heard about his faith. And he told me that, you know, in this world, there's only one sinless man. We all know that we cannot be perfect. But the most important thing is that every single minute of our lives, we really needed to be striving to be perfect. Then there was a service to country, community, to our societies. The way I understood it from him, this was our reason for being. And we were to serve, even as leaders. We were to serve in honesty, in truth, and integrity. The fourth point that I wanted to touch on was one that has been broadcast today. It was the one about humility. Consummate Prof. He told me that we are all God's children. And the fact that you're a better hockey player, a better football player, indeed, even a Hearts of Oak fan, that was one of the things that him and I disagreed on. But hey, Fabulous Asante Kotoko. Yeah. So Prof and I disagreed on that. But the point that he always made was that even if you are a better football player, a better mathematician, it didn't make you a better human being, a better person than the one you were in front of. And so it was important that we respect people, that we be humble enough to listen to what people have to say, because like he said, if you listened hard enough and the person made no sense, you lost nothing but 5 or 10 or 20 minutes of your life. But you never knew what you might gain from just listening to the person. Plus, he also told me that if you dress humbly, a lot of times you get to see a person for who they really are before they know who you are. And I'm sure many of us have walked into spaces where we weren't dressed as people expect us to be dressed, and people have shown their true colors to us before they realized who we actually were. He had a disgust for cheating. He had an abhorrence for corruption. He said, bar none, it was what we needed to clean up in our country if we wanted to move Ghana forward. And so even for those of us who believe in private enterprise, I got to the point where I started to understand that I can be simultaneously a capitalist and a socialist, and there was no contradiction. The difference was where the money came from. If I was ever given a pot of money that was for a country, a team, a region, a community, by definition, I had to be a socialist. I had to think about equity. I had to think about fairness, and so on and so forth. So there was no contradiction there. And related to that was the issue of conflict of interest. He saw it as the easiest way to get tripped up in the whole corruption shenanigans. My first lesson didn't involve Prof, but he explained it to me later on. My first lesson was when I was 18 and my admissions file percolated to the top of the admissions list of the University of Ghana. And my father, who was at the registry at that point, basically got up and recused himself. As the University of Ghana is a social institution like many others, the rumor trickled out of that admissions room, got to my mother, got to me about how my father had basically compromised me by making sure he was not there when a decision was being made about my file. And of course, when we went to hockey, I mentioned it to Prof. Mills unhappily, and what he told me was, simple question, would you have been happy if you got in and found out that you didn't get in on your own steam? In other words, it was your father's presence that got you in. And I reflected on that for a moment, and I thought, maybe he's right. But that was Professor Mills, being able to, like my immediate predecessor said, break things down very, very simply for all of us to understand. Of course, I got home and I apologized to my father. Bear with me, there are just 3 more. One of them was fearlessness. Prof basically taught us that what you had to do, you had to do. And you had to be fearless. You had to do it regardless of the consequences. He also taught us that people may not like you if you do the right thing. But guess what? They will respect you. They may not tell you to your face. So do the right thing, no matter what the cost is. Ultimately, I think we all know that Prof's faith and his belief in God were everything to him. That is something that some of us are still trying to learn, and our mission is to try to get even more people to learn that. Number 9, suffering. He taught us that suffering is an obligation. He took me once to Philippians 1:29, where we learn that suffering is a responsibility, it's an obligation, it's not simply something that we are going to encounter. And so he said, Padigo, if it ever comes to the point where you think you are being unfairly treated and you are suffering, take that as a badge of honor, take that as an opportunity to do what your God wants you to do, because Philippians 1:29 tells us that it is incumbent on us to suffer for our faith. So I still remember Prof in his office lamenting, saying, Padigo, what's the matter on dinner? And I still remember the pain. But even that was teaching, even that was mentoring, even that was an opportunity to help us learn, because subsequently, any time that I've gone through any of the things that we've gone through, and I know everybody has gone through things, but hey, I could mention the Martha Bisa issue and whatnot. I always remember that, hey, look, I served under somebody who suffered even more than I do. So who am I to complain about what you're going through? Finally, he taught us that leadership and service were obligations. He said there were 3 basic rules when you were a leader. The first one was that you had to let people recognize that you were in the leadership position not for your own personal good. You weren't there to self-aggrandize or anything of that sort. Second of all, he said you had to let the people who you were trying to lead recognize that you treated them equally and fairly. And thirdly, you had to let them know that you would go to bat for them if they did the right things. Even if people were against them, you would stand up for them. And he convinced me that if you did these 3 things, made sure that the people that you are leading believe these 3 things, they would do anything for you. And I saw people do things for Prof that were amazing. So if you are a leader, if things need to be fixed, your job was to fix them or die trying to fix them. And that's what Prof did. He died. He answered the call. He stood up to lead. And he led as both a president and as a priest. Again, you can go to Zechariah 6 and read verses 12 and 13, and you will see the role that Prof had, both as a leader and as a priest. No surprise that the first month he was in office, there were complaints about him turning the castle into a prayer camp or something of that sort. So that was Prof. That's what I learned from him. I loved him. I miss him. I'm proud to speak about him. I thank the organizers for inviting me. When he passed, we used to say, Sasa. But I'm hoping that today there is a rebirth. God rest Prof's soul. God lift high his legacy. And God bless our one and only Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Francis Dudu. And now when we think about losing, we think about it in a different way, you know. You can actually get used to losing. One person who didn't get used to losing is also a professor. He's up there, Professor Azuma Zoom Nelson, who's here with us as well, who I believe won more times than he lost. Otherwise, he wouldn't be where he was and he is today. Thank you so much. We're live on TV XYZ, CTV, Power FM, Class FM, Ahoto FM, TV3, Metro, and Wezo TV. The third leg of the presentations is on governance, and it will be delivered by former director of the Institute of Local Government Studies right here in Accra. It's on Professor John Evans Atta Mills, Good Governance and Servant Leadership. Let's welcome Dr. Esther Ofe Abuaje.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, the former President of the Republic of Ghana, John Mahama, representative of the former President, John Ejekunkufo, representative of the sitting President, the representative of the Chief Justice, our distinguished Chair, Nana Kobna Nketsia Defe. I had a burning desire to go through that door and not be seen again, not to take up this speaking segment after the two professors had spoken, because they had said everything that needed to be said. But it's imperative that I make this submission. I didn't have the privilege of being taught by Professor Mills, and I experienced Professor Mills in his presidency. But my younger sister, Rosemary, was Professor Mills's teaching assistant in 1987 and 88. So through her, by that extension, I got to experience some of that mentoring, that mentorship. And when I was given this distinguished opportunity, the question that kept coming up in my mind was that what would Professor Mills have said 10 years down the line? What would Professor Mills say with everything he tried to leave us with, the legacy he tried to leave us with? What would Professor Mills have said? So out of the endless range of possibilities around governance issues to reflect on, I chose three things. For Professor Mills, public service was public service. So institutions, instruments, and people must serve. They must be fit for purpose, which is why Professor Mills left that legacy of the urgent need for constitutional reform. Now, Chair, I come from a faith tradition that believes in the church reformed, always reforming. So that if your institution is not fit for purpose, then you need to look at it and embark on reform, grasp the nettle. So that was one thing that I asked myself, what would Professor Mills have said? The second thing I asked myself, what Professor Mills would have said, what he would have thought about, was promoting transparency and accountability in the fight against corruption. What would Professor Mills have said? Then the third area, national unity, national consensus. And where we find ourselves as a nation today, the deep divide, what would Professor Mills have said? Nana Chair, Professor Mills established the Constitutional Review Commission in 2010 to ascertain the views of the people of Ghana on whether their 1992 Constitution was still workable, was still working, its strengths and weaknesses, and to make recommendations to government. And typical of him, he put together the Constitutional Review Committee, the Constitution Review Committee, under the chairmanship of Professor Albert Fiajo. And the membership was a great mix of eminent academics, traditional authorities, faith leaders, legal luminaries, and including the current electoral commissioner. And the commission's recommendations were presented. The white paper was served to government and raised a number of things which I think as a nation we need to reflect on. Around national development planning, there was a prescription for a comprehensive long-term strategic multi-year rolling national development plan, and also to strengthen the commission itself. 10 years down the line, we haven't got that. What would Professor Mills have said? The recommendations that Professor Mills accepted included ensuring regional and gender balance through quotas. And what would he have said today? The slow progress of the Affirmative Action Bill now. I believe it would have surprised Professor Mills that a decade afterwards, we are still where we are with it. Professor Mills, demonstrated his belief in ensuring that women alongside men were in positions of influence and merit. And therefore, this would have surprised him, I do believe. The recommendations also threw up things that are still very actively debated today, including decoupling the Office of the Attorney General from the Ministry of Justice, clarifying subsidiary legislations. In relation to Parliament, the conditions of service for speakers and members, the issues around immunity, service and process, and also various issues around the public services. There too, there had been provision for affirmative action for gender balance. It still remains unresolved. In my particular area of interest, decentralization and local governance, a whole range of recommendations were also made, which his government accepted in the white paper. At that time, there were concerns about the amendment of Article 248 to empower Parliament to provide for partisan elections at the local government level. But issues around the selection, qualification, and composition of the assemblies, the modes of selection of the chief executives, 10 years in terms of office of presiding members and assembly members, still constitute unfinished business. Fiscal decentralization remains a thorny impediment to realizing meaningful decentralization. What would Professor Mills have said? The issues around traditional authorities, conceptualizing national security, the issues of lands and natural resources, even though there have been incremental efforts to address this through policy and legislative reform, I believe he would have expected us to have achieved more by this time. Recommendations around children's rights, including the creation of the Office for the Special Commissioner for Children, Persons with Disability, and the aged within SHRASH, have not seen fruition. Then, the recommendation for including the essence of the National Youth Policy in the directive principles of state policy, if we had been able to get it, would have helped us to leverage the demographic dividend. What would Professor Mills have said? in relation to the fight against corruption and the promotion of transparency. I believe that Ghana, on Professor Mills's watch, took some important steps. In 2013, the Transparency International Corruption Perception ranked Ghana with a score of 46 out of 100 and the 8th best performer in sub-Saharan Africa. 2021, the Corruption Perception Index scores us 43 out of 100, ranking us 9th around Senegal in sub-Saharan Africa, overtaken by countries like the Seychelles, Malawi, and others. What would Professor Mills have said? This suggests that Ghana, there's a stubborn perception of persisting corruption that would have dismayed Professor Mills. While Professor Mills might have been happy about the passage of the Right to Information Act after a long wait, he would be concerned with the still strong persistence of patronage networks, the corruption scandals, and other situations a decade after his death. A previous speaker referred to the passage of the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. The dimension of interest of those of us in civil society is the establishment of the Public Interest and Accountability Act, PIAC, in 2011, under the watch of Professor Mills. To what extent have we been able to manage this legacy that he left us with? And to what extent has civil society been able to work effectively with government under this or within this model that he provided us? What would Professor Mills have said? Public institutions, private institutions, monitoring serious fraud and monitoring and investigating actions that would cause financial and economic loss to the state, encouraged Professor Mills to redesignate the Serious Fraud Office into the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, in 2010. In this situation, well, what would he have said? Did it achieve what he intended it to achieve? The challenge that anti-corruption institutions still face in the face of inadequate resources for their work, as well as their inability to enjoy freedom from influence from the executive and partisan politics, persists. He may have rejoiced with the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor and the Memorandum of Understanding between the anti-corruption institutions. But if all these things are in place, what is driving corruption and the persisting, stubborn perception of this specter in our society? What would Professor Mills have said? He may have applauded improvements in public service delivery, such as in the passports and driving licenses and so on. But he would have been concerned that police officers on the road still enjoy inducements. As a taxman, he would have been gratified by reforms in preparing, filing, and paying taxes. But I believe he would have been dismayed that selected strategies for revenue generation potentially disadvantage the poorer sections of the population. What would Professor Mills have said? Professor Mills's interest in efficient and accountable governance led to initiatives that would bring about effective management and oversight. So he established the Policy and Evaluation and Oversight Unit at the Presidency in June 2009 to keep a close eye on the way processes evolved, ensure policy coherence, and make sure that change management was coordinated and effective. Over the decades, there have been efforts to strengthen the capacities of various oversight bodies. But it is clear that there is still the need for stronger public sector performance, collaboration, partnership, and policy resonance. Indeed, if you've listened to the utterances over the week that have come out from the Ministry of Finance about the abysmal performance of public enterprises, 2017, 2018, and as a high official said, they make for difficult reading in the Auditor General's report. You ask yourself what Professor Mills would have said. in particular boards and governing councils of public institutions. They need to strengthen corporate governance. They need to be self-evaluating. And the need for patriotism that Professor Mills embodied. The need to instill accountability for that culture to permeate throughout the national fabric. What would Professor Mills have said? Now more urgently than before, Nana Che, we need to have consensus. We need to be more united as a nation on national concerns. But it would appear that there are more divisions and protests on major development proposals. It appears that there are widening distances between the people's representatives and the represented. Is the answer in wider consultation or consensus building? Because Professor Mills believed in that. On his watch, I was involved in something his government had promised, which was the review of the national decentralization experience. Professor Mills insisted that we go around the country so that whatever product that came up, people can identify the sound of their voices in that document. So we consulted, regionally consulted every conceivable interest group and tried to capture their voices. The constitutional review process which followed also involved a similar set of processes. And this was subsequently adopted in the preparation of the long-term National Development Plan in 2016. However, the products of these consultations were not continued for implementation with a change of government. The question I'm asking myself is that we indicate that we are mainstreaming consultation in budget making, in the legislation we have passed, and other mechanisms. Is it in the quality rather than the quantity of engagement? Because this country went through the process of reforming the selection and appointment of MMDCs last year in the effort to amend Articles 55(3) and 2431 of the Constitution. Now, the charge that has been assigned to the failure to build consensus was that there wasn't enough consultation and engagement. The question I've been asking myself, as I observe with some dismay the differences that are coming up in education policy, the issues around taxation and other economic measures, that people or government is not talking to people enough. So the question I'm asking is it that our consultative processes, activities, ideas, and proposals, rather than eliciting our inputs, are designed to persuade us down a certain path? Are our listening governments listening proactively or reactively? Are carts being put ahead of horses? Is engagement an afterthought or a corrective action? What would Professor Mills have said? In this regard, Nana Chairman, development is about change management. Development is about change management. And change management is about communication. Without communication, you cannot manage change. You cannot share a vision. You cannot manage resistance to change. What would Professor Mills have said? I thank you for your attention.
My Savior
Thank you very much, Winneba Youth Choir, and thanks to all our speakers, Professor Kofi Abuchi, Professor Francis Dodu, and Dr. Esther Ofe Abuaji. They deserve a resounding round of applause. I'm still thinking about what Professor Mills would have said, and I know the journalists are writing stories plenty. All right, just to say hello to a couple of our guests here before we bring on our guest speaker. President Kufuor is ably represented here by his special aides, Dr. Osei Edubofor and Sapong Edu Achampong. It's good to have you here. And we want to say hello to Dr. Stephen Pupuni, Mrs. Sati Okran. We also have with us Mr. Hudu Yahya, Professor Nana Puku Ajiman is here with us, as well as the flag bearer for the PPP in the previous election, Brigitte Chukwanuku. Good to have you all here. Our guest speaker is ready to address this audience. He has a passion for development economics and has served as board chairman of reputable state and corporate organizations such as the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission of Ghana. He was the CEO of the then Ghana Cocoa Marketing Board. Let's put our hands together for elder statesman and development economist, Mr. Kwame Pienim.
Thank you very much. First of all, Nanache, let me express appreciation to the board of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage for having the courage to invite me. What we lack in Ghana is political courage. I remember when President Mahama invited me to the Senchi Forum. I was in South Africa. Arrived Friday night at about midnight, got up 4 a.m. to drive to Senchi. Got there so that I'll be briefed in the morning by Professor Kwesi Botwe before the session started. But Kwesi did not brief me well. He did not tell me some invitees were not coming. So after the formal session, all the press, the TV, radios descended on me. Why are you here? And I said, why? They said, your people are not here. I said, oh, the Ashantis didn't come. They said, no, not the Ashantis. I said, the Catholics didn't come. No. You mean the Achimotans didn't? They said, no, the NPP. And I said, I'm first and foremost a Ghanaian. And I do not allow anybody to select whom I associate with in other forums. The team is John Evan Atta Mills, the man, 10 years on. When we were in prison in Sawem, I see my friend Nyahu Tamaklu is here, Captain Nyahu Tamaklu, Dr. Nyahu Tamaklu. A police officer was detained and sent to us. He was a bit flippant, and when life is short, you don't want to deal with flippant people. I never tried to associate with him. And when he was leaving, we had to have a party for him. And I was the most senior because I passed. After in prison, you start with white. And then once you've had 5 years and over, you become a black coat, but a black is blue. So I had to chair the function. And he was speaking and he said, character cannot be amended. Character cannot be changed. It can only be amended. And I stopped what I was doing and looked at him. And I said, I missed an opportunity to have learned from this man. Professor Mills was first and foremost a decent human being. An honest man, a man of character. And I'm talking about this man from two perspectives. I wasn't his friend. We liked one another. I'm talking about the young, bright, keen teenager who arrived in Achimota about 60 years ago. When he was in Form 1, I was in Form 5. When he calls me uncle, people don't understand. Because in Africa, monkeys play by sizes. What I noticed about this man is he was a precocious hockey player, so he used to play with us, the big boys. He wanted to win, a good team player, fair and a stickler for the rules. And I noticed that. I noticed that his friends were not like others who go always with their tribesmen. His best friends, Yao Safumafu, Kwabna Kwanza. Kwabna Kwanza is a Fanti, raised and brought up in Obuasi. Yao Safumafu from Mewisa. And Joel Hyde, again. So in his friendship even, you saw that these were the people he picked. And one thing I noticed about this young man, he danced to his own inner tune. You could not influence him. Once he made up his mind, that's what he was going to do. He was not one of the people to go with the mobs. And this characteristic of the young man followed him into politics. So he was fearless to lead. You couldn't change him. He danced to his own tune. So this is the man I'm going to talk about, the young man who became a man, his political persona. Why do we need him today? Look at the state of our politics. Highly politicized and polarized. And the leaders terrified, paralyzed with fear of the people they are supposed to lead. You try to get 2 or 3 people to join you to tour and talk to power. Hey, Charlie, you better do atemu. M-Pesa. The young people will kill us. Let's talk to them for them to kill us. Otherwise, when they get hungry and angry enough on the streets, they will kill us. The joke going around Kumasi, I just came from Kumasi yesterday, is this young, bright lawyer goes to the chairman of the constituency, Charlie, next time the municipal parliament, I want to go to parliament. And he's small. So the chairman lifted him up and said, Charlie, say the parliament, it blows. Was it one thing legend? We are paralyzed. We need people to go across the political divide. And males definitely have crossed the political divide. So we need the Atta male's character today more than ever. The man who will reach across, a man of peace and of courage. The process of acquiring political power is like putting mineral ore through fire, a furnace. If the character is good, it comes out shining. The character is bad, it worsens the character. It's no different from the process of losing power. When you lose control and you are in prison, prison reveals if the character is good, you become better. Your character is bad, it becomes worse. I'm going to refer to two Dagomba sayings. They are not sayings. An old Dagomba person taught me. He said, if you dress up a donkey as a racehorse on the day of the race, it will be revealed for the ass that it is. So the press and media can dress up leaders for us, but when they get in, we'll know. If their character is not good to begin with. The other one that he taught me was, if you have a friend and think this friend is good, oh, he's humble, he's nice. Maybe he's poor, give him money. If he has money and he's so humble and nice, maybe you have a good friend. And then, if it is within your powers, give him power. And if he has power and he's so humble and nice, then you have a very good man. But most people cannot handle power. But the process, Mills went through all this process and remained basically the same, a decent man, a good man. The only time he talked a little about corruption with me, and I think that was the last time I saw him before he died. He asked me one thing. Do you know Francis Dodo? And I said, no, he's never asked me about anybody else before. And he said, I think you should try to know him. I said, okay. I forgot it. 2 weeks after he died, and I said, I better try. So I called this young man, Francis Dodo, now Professor Dodo. He came to see me, we had a chat, and then I realized what Professor Mills meant. We need people like that for Ghana to move ahead. I try to just go through a few illustrative purposes to show the man that Atta Mills was. I've said it before, and I give you the background, the context. I was a consultant to a German businessman. And when he came to Ghana looking for me, and it's us who create this, we and them. He was told, oh, come get him. He's a member of the MPPO. You can't use him as a consultant anymore. So they gave him an NDC consultant, which was fine. So I'm staying in my house and the guy calls me. I say, oh, are you in Ghana? He said, yes. I've been here for about a week. Oh, I've been here for, so I need to see you urgently. I said, okay, come. He came. And he said, I'm in trouble. I said, what trouble are you in? He said, oh, we went to see Professor Mills. And I was advised by my consultant. He said, you have another consultant? Oh, yes, yes. They told me to ignore you, IPP. I said, okay. So, and they said we should prepare a small envelope for him. And we left the envelope. Now, a soldier has come to summon me. I think there was something wrong with the envelope. I said, don't worry, go, he's a nice man. And if it is about the envelope, you can say you were advised, and you won't do it again. And if he's pushing you, tell him you are my friend. He's also my friend, so maybe. He said, okay. So he went. And Professor Mills said, I thought you were giving me documents on your company. What is this? And he threw like this. And the man said, oh, I was advised to put something small. And he said, take it. And please don't do that again. And I said, thank you, sir. And of course, the German also was a bit cheeky and said, what about the other envelope to the big man? And Mel said, when you see him, you discover him. I wasn't there. Go. So the man left. How many of you remember when Mills was doing his campaign? Whatever politician in Ghana has been bold enough to say that the people, some of the people I would like to govern with are members of the opposition. Kwame Adukufo, Yaosafo Mafo, Kwame PNM. Do you remember? For avoidance of doubt and clarity of purpose and avoidance of conflict of interest, let me say I am NPP after being a Ghanaian. May said that these are the people I like to govern with. And for avoidance of conflict, when President Rawlings was leaving power, I think one of the last things he did, maybe from the influence of Professor Atta Mills, he gave me, in connection with my, what do the lawyers say? My my treason-related conviction. They gave me an absolute unconditional pardon. Absolute unconditional. And the beautiful thing of it, I don't even think the lawyers will study that and write about it, is that they set aside the decision of the Supreme Court that I could not contest as a president. They set it aside. Can you imagine? Professor Mills was always looking at the other side. How many, he didn't see political colors. How many of you remember when he was campaigning and he went to a visa, the constituency of Yaosafo Mafo and Ejay Mafo? He opted to sleep in the house of his old schoolmate Yaosafo Mafo, a member of the NPP, instead of Ejay Mafo, a member of the NDC, similar houses next door to one another. Most of the politicians now will not dare. They will say, the supporters will kill us. We are terrified of the supporters we have. We've militarized them. Foot soldiers, we are scared of them. Invisible forces, boot for boot. This is what we are inheriting now. The children in parliament. I now refuse to address any parliamentarian as honorable. It was aspirational. They are dimming Ghana's bright brand as a citadel, a beacon of democracy. So I will not address any of them as honorable until they apologize to the nation. These, a few points that I have made, show us the character of the man. I was going to see him with Atta Ahoy and the Airtel Tigo when the founder, Sunil Mitra, was in town. And my chief executive, being a good Ghanaian and using the Ghanaian political equation, had told him that it would not be good if I, as chairman of the board, accompanied him because I was NPP. So Sunil Mitra said, no, we'll go with Mr. PNM. So my chief executive went and collected him, and I was supposed to find my way. I got there. When Professor Mills heard I was on the other side, he sent for me to come to the private side. My own president one time even refused to see me and my people. So I went there, surprised, and then I said, Prof, is there anything that the man can do for you? I was hoping that we'll do something, unite the India and the Ghana hockey. He said, Accra, the thing bothering me now is Cape Coast University. Their auditorium and theater and so forth. I said, about how much will it cost? He said, maybe about $1.5 million. I said, okay, I'll tell him. So I went to the other side, and as we were walking in with my chief executive and Atta, has then joined me, we were going in, my chief executive went around this, and then he was going to direct. This man seated. Then Prof said, no, Accra, come and sit by me. Put me here, put me there. And then he was trying to get Atta ahead of Atta. Said, hey, how can I go if my boss hasn't gone? And Prof said, the Cape Coastin, and I told Sunil Mitra, he wants something for Cape Coast. He said, look, we have a legacy fund of $3 million there. If it's about $2 million, let him just send the invoice and we pay. That's what we did. So it is us Ghanaians who preach this. Before I end, let me talk a little bit about tax. Prof, as a taxman that I knew him. You know, some people use the Ghana Revenue Authority, the tax, as a way of harassing their political opponents. One of our colleagues was being harassed. The tax people have been there for 3 months doing so-called auditing. So I went to the tax office. I hadn't seen Professor Mills for almost 30 years, since I saw him as a teenager. I went without an appointment and I told them, tell him that Kwame PNM is here. He was in a meeting. He stopped the meeting, came out to see me and said, Accra, what can I do? And I said, Accra, you are here and you are using tax to intimidate political opponents. He said, Accra, it won't happen. I said, call your regional officer. The man came. Shifty eyed, he couldn't look Prof in the eye, couldn't look me in the eye. Prof said, Accra, I see, go. By the next day, he had removed all the so-called auditors. That was Prof. Atta Mills. He doesn't see political color. A little bit about education, legal education. Most people do not realize how difficult it is when you are enemy of the state and you have to defend yourself. It's a lonely position. Your friends will not talk to you. They run away from you. So when you are looking for a lawyer, it is very, very difficult. Through my interface with the law, I recognize 3 types of lawyers. I note that the Atta Mills Foundation is also to influence legal education. The first group of lawyers I note, and that we should produce more of, are those who are trained and know that the law is to serve justice, to deliver justice. There's another group, good lawyers who want to do good and help people, but feckless. They don't have the courage to help people. The third group, brilliant, dazzling. We don't want those. They are the ones who look for the loopholes, for the dictators to oppress us. I remember when I was being tried, they say, oh, technicalities should be avoided. Hearsay evidence is acceptable, provided the judge warns himself. That is hearsay evidence. Technicalities are not acceptable. If the government, with all the lawyers, cannot do the charge properly, it means they are not fighting to deliver justice and therefore throw it out. If instead of saying the man threw 555 cigarette, we say 55, throw it out. It is better for 10 guilty people to escape than for 1 innocent person to be imprisoned. When I remember the days I spent in prison, I remember vividly the lawyers coming. Cromwell Quist will be tracking down to the prisons, sometimes being hassled by the prison officers, to talk to the young people, to prepare habeas corpus, to get them to be released. When after he's finished all this hard work, the parents' relatives will come and say, hey, about some money and pesa, don't go and challenge, don't go and honor them. Please sit. Cromwell Quist alone coming to do that. We want the legal education, we want to influence, to produce more Cromwell Quist to help the people. When I was being tried, trying to get a lawyer to support me, in those days, all the lawyers were not attending the tribunals. Yeah. My brother has struggled to become a lawyer. He wanted to say, my brother, please, I don't want you to lose your license. He said, look, if I let them kill my brother, what is the use of my law degree to me? And I was facing a death penalty. So he decided, we brought somebody from the UK, a QC, to represent me. We had to go to the Chief Justice, Justice Apalo. He said, yeah, as long as you know traditional laws, you'll be fine to practice. That's the man we brought from the UK. Then, only, and our women are strong, they are solid. Justice Anijage was the only one who was prepared to say that, to interview my lawyer, and say that he qualified, because I've been a DC in Kenya, and therefore understood traditional law. He said, you qualify more than me, and signed the paper for him. Then my brother needed a lawyer, practicing lawyer, to sponsor him to practice law in Ghana. His classmates who qualified, they all ran away. One so-called human rights activist said, "You come to my office at 6 tomorrow and I'll sign it." My brother and this Englishman arrived there. 6 a.m. Maybe he wanted to sign in the Kodemosli. He wasn't there. They waited until 2 p.m. He wasn't there. So they went back to Jasapalu. We can't get a sponsor. I asked my brother, how long have you qualified? He said, are you qualified? So my brother had to sign it. It's difficult when you are in trouble to get somebody. But the Chromworkers are there. So when you are training them, train more of them. I do not believe in those who are saying we need a new constitution. The constitution we have, with a few judicial adjudication and review, can be brought to light. A few changes. We don't need to overhaul, get a new constitution. What is wrong with the constitution are us, Ghanaians. The president has too much powers. The president doesn't pass law. We have 275 MPs sitting there. They are supposed to approve the ministers. It's not the president. So if we say yes, they are the ministers. We have a council of state who are supposed to make certain appointments in consultation with or on the advice of. I don't know what documents they say the president should bring when it's in consultation with or on the advice of. So it is not the president who have too much power. It's us to stand up and be courageous to say, Mr. President, this person you want to occupy this position is not good enough. They are not experienced enough. The courage to take decisions. This was Atta. He appointed me to the Petroleum Commission. The minister called me, the president said we should appoint you. So I said, look, you haven't talked to me. He said, okay, when the president can go and complain to him. I really didn't even want me to be appointed. So, please, the foundation, education, legal education is very important so that people realize that the law is to be a service to the people. And all of us, let's support the judges to do what is right. When you're a minister and an investor is coming and complaining about the case before the court, don't tell him, please get us the name of the judge. We know what to do. You don't know what to do. We are supposed to help the judges to be independent, an independent judiciary. If the cases that go to the courts are adjudicated properly, there will be no need for people to be on the streets who have confidence in it. And we only have confidence in it if we want to support them. We need to support the judiciary, independent. We need to strengthen our parliamentarians. It means you and I should stop going with our bills to the people in parliament for them to pay. They are not paid well enough. If we go there, then something goes to your committee. How can you blame them when they demand $10,000 for that? So in order for them to be strong to do their job, the Tamil spirit should prevail. Courage to speak your mind, courage to speak to authorities, and then, please, let us leave the press alone to work. And you press, if you want us to leave you alone, please, when you open your mouth and we are putting bread inside, close your mouth. I remember a renowned member of the press, of the so-called independent press, coming to me. He's been appointed to serve on some committee. I said, Charlie, you cannot serve on the committee. Say, why? I said, you cannot be with the hunters and the hunted. Simple conflict of interest. You cannot do that. Let me say that all of us should try to contribute to this memorial heritage. It should not be to immortalize the ideals of Sir John Evans Atta Mills. It should be to let his principles be at work, for us to emulate. Why do we set up a memorial? So that these characteristics, good characteristics of Sir Atta Mills, sound character. As we say in my village, when a young man I saw, I said, Papa, yetiti no ofie. Ofie nyansa. And when Professor Mills said, "Do fiasem," it's a principle. What does it mean? It means you of the NDC fix your own governance and let us in the MPP fix our own. If we do not have good governance in our parties, how can we expect to have good governance when we are in government? Let our institutions be democratic, accountable, and then when they become governments, they'll be democratic and accountable. Let us all go out and say, all paid up members should vote for the presidential candidate, the chairman of the party, and the general secretary of the party. This is the only way we will stop the money influencing politics and that politics influencing corruption at the national level. In conclusion, I was told by Kwamina, you have to talk small. I was surprised when it was Kwamina Ahoy and Kwame Pepra, because the KP2, I'm supposed to be KP1, who came to invite me. I have an interesting checkered history with Kwamina. I think that the Professor Mills I know, the hockey player, he will play the game to get a trophy. But one of these days, Kwame has to explain to us why instead of running the race, he ran to steal the cup. we get on very well, in spite of what people tell me. But we leave that side aside. Atta is my friend. And the two brothers, Kwesi Ahoy, when I left prison and I was trying to make a living, and I went to set up a company, and it was at JIPC, and I went and I said, oh, I want this document. And he said, oh, he received nicely, and said, oh, come tomorrow. I thought it was the usual come tomorrow, Ghanaian come tomorrow. I ignored him. The next day I went, and holy smoke, the paper was ready. I look at him differently. That's the competent one among their Ahoys. Kwamina is a partisan one among them. And Atta is a good one who knows how to do good, but he can also be cantankerous. So let me thank you, those who conceived and planned the Atta Mills Memorial Heritage. In my village, they say that Obiya de Pa, Osa JEA, Osa Asida. I think the time has come that the board should apply for the Mo Ibrahim Prize. Atta Mills had a very short life, but when God wants to show us something good, it comes in a big flash so that we all see the flash. Otherwise, Jesus could have lived to 100 years, only in his 30s. See, this is important. Focus on it. Look at his character. Goes across the political divide. Doesn't see political color. Fair. He plays the game, team player, and fearless. What Ghana needs now, leaders who are fearless, who are ready to lead, in spite of what their people want. One of the things, if Ghana is lucky, if Atta Mills had not followed John Agyekum Kufuor, who had democratic instincts, when his Minister for Communication went with him with a tax, all international calls were supposed to come through one. Kufuor said, what does it mean, live? He said, we can see people's transactions, their talk, and this. Kufuor said, but this, against privacy. You'll be listening to people's. He said, no. It was supposed to earn $50 million for Ghana. Kufuor said, no. He refused. He had good democratic instincts. When Mills came, this same minister who had been trying to, went to the other side and they passed it through Parliament. And I asked this minister, why are you doing this? He said, power. When we come to power, we can use this. What's the use of a government listening to people's telephone calls? If you are doing what is right, what are you afraid of? But we passed it through. And we had a consensus building Mahama. He tried. The other side did not have the courage to respond. I'm happy it is non-partisan. Please call us anytime if we need help, and we shall be there. When Kofi Annan wanted to settle the frosty relationship between President Rawlings and President Kufuor, he called me, Kwame, please go and arrange it for me. I said, hey, both sides don't like me. He said, no, you are the only one who can do it for me. I said, what do you mean? He said, yeah. So I took the phone. On my way there, I called President Mills. I said, Akura, this the assignment Kofi has given me. And I hope you help me bring Rawlings in, because Kofi wanted to have coffee with Kufuor and Rawlings. Then I called now Ambassador Victor Smith. I said, I'm coming to see you. And they said, okay, come. I didn't know who was coming. When I got to the gate of the Rawlings office, they come and look at me, and they go, what's your name? Kwampi. And they come and look at me. I go, come and look at me. So after 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, then they let me go. And when I entered Victor Smith's office, he got up. Hey, I said, it's me, no weapons. I said my mission, the Secretary General would like to have coffee with, then President Rawlings said, he won't go unless his lawyer accompanies him. Victor and I said, oh, Kufuor will bring his wife and you bring yours. He said, no. And he said, Kofi has not even called him since he came into town. I said, oh, is that so? He said, yes. So that gave me an out. So I said, okay, thank you. So I went back. to Kofi and I said, you haven't called President Ronsi? They said, no. I said, how can you come to Ghana and not call him? I said, you better come. He said, okay, you was going to call him. Then I said, then you arrange your coffee after you've called him. So long live the Atta Mills Memorial Heritage. Long live our one and only Ghana. And may the motherland help us to generate people of courage. Because all we lack in Ghana now, we have all the resources in the world, petrol, now the new batteries. We have lithium, we have cobalt. We have people. Osajibu didn't have the people. There is no field of human endeavor in the world now where we don't have Ghanaians performing. Brain tumor, McCain's brain tumor. It was a Ghanaian who was working on it, helping them. Not one of the legacy schools, so Navrongo Secondary School. Doctor. The robot that went to Mars, a colleague of mine, Olenu, his son, was working on it. We have no excuse to be poor. The only deficit we have is leadership. Leaders with courage. Nana Chairman, I thank you and the organizers for having the courage to invite me. Thank you.
I think he deserves a bigger round of applause for a masterful presentation. Elder statesman, development economist, powerful speaker, Mr. Kwame Pienim. And after that, all we have to hear are the closing remarks of our chairman. Let's bring onto the stage Nana Kobna Nketiah, the fifth Esikadohin, to wrap it up for us nicely at the launch of the John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage. Kindly take your seats. Thank you. Nana Chair, the stage is yours.
We're still standing in the protocols. Some did it very nicely. Some were almost as bad as me. But the most interesting thing is that I really don't know what is here about the speeches that we're giving. Winnie Bakwai sang so beautifully, and so on. And the words simplicity, humility, unpretentiousness. It's been a moving evening. A moving evening that inspires you to be a Ghanaian. And as Esther was talking, I was just sitting down, listening to each speech, and saying to myself, what would Prophet Atta Mills have said? That becomes a measure. Doing right or wrong, what would Prophet Atta Mills have said? It got to a point I thought that the former president was going to cry. And I was looking for my hanky. I remember that I really, thank you that it didn't drop. Bremen soon. So that was, and I said, if he'd been a chief at Bole, and I think he's been installed, one way or the other, we would have removed him from the scheme immediately. If he had. But what comes out from all the things that I've heard, I know that I quoted Chinwezu, almost the same way as we quote Fela. Whenever I see VIPs, I think about Chinwezu's referring to them as vampires in power. Fela calls them vagabonds in power. And if you apply those words to me, or those phrases to me, even if you say it's seat for VIPs, I dodge it here in Africa. But you see, as they talked, it comes out what Leonard Jeffrey says. He's talking about values, interests, and principles. And this is what Professor Atta Mills was about. And I presume, listening to Sebefia talking about this, then I presume that that is what this board is about. And really, who wouldn't want to identify himself with this? Any person who is interested in this country, any person who is interested in Africa, any person who is interested in humanity would definitely identify with this board. And I thank you for setting it up. My good friend, I've been telling people to tell you to write, but now I'm getting scared about asking you to write. Because when I saw Matilda sitting there, I was always on the back of her husband. Pakwesi, write, leave your memories behind. Pakwesi left. And as I was sitting there, I remember 2 years ago, we listened to a brilliant speech here about Soludo, given by Soludo. One of the nicest speeches that I've heard in a long time. And then our current finance minister was sitting next to me, and we're having a chat during that time. Then he had to leave, and fortunately, Ankara Tuahoy came to sit next to me and explains the travesty of being old. I'm getting close to Atu's age, so I now experience the things he was experiencing. He was always sit close to the loo, you know. But somebody's got it. But the most interesting thing is that when you're from Sekindita Kradi, just as I am, one of the things you can't have is to think ethnic. But I'm going to say something that wouldn't want you, or that would make you say that when you have Atta Mills, you are carrying a burden. The burden, the legacy of a name. Prof couldn't have destroyed what his father inculcated in him. If he had done that, his brother would have been nothing. I sat, and this is the good side about not having special cars and so on to drive you around. I took a year, I was going to chair a function at IEA, and I took a Yango. I never sat in a Yango before. And it gives you the opportunity to talk because the person doesn't know who you are or what you are. So we talk about Ghana. And this boy is Asante. And he came in from Russia, and I was flabbergasted. Russia? What are you doing there? He says, oh, I'm going back. He was educating me about the Ghanaians in Russia. And that when he's in a queue, and he's going to even get bread, somebody talks to him, you're Ghana, Nkrumah? The person will let him go up, and sometimes they buy the bread and give it to him. This is something new. I haven't heard this one before. But as we talked, we went into Ghana. And then he said, oh, Ghana Bay and Chida Fantini, my tree is bad. Then I went like this. Why do you say so? So it's only a Fanti who will be selfless, who wouldn't think about his ethnic group and so on, and it's all about the country and the name he would leave behind. What he was actually doing was that he was telling us that the burden you carry, that if you come and mess up, you don't mess up for your house, for your home, you mess up for your ethnic group, and you mess up for the whole entity you are and what it means to being a Ghanaian. So most of us who pick up public offices, don't be proud if people are praising you for certain things. Be proud when they see that you're serving your country and other people in the best way and uplifting the whole country. That is what Atta Mills is about. And believe you me, I'm now happy I trekked to come to Accra. Whenever I'm needed, please, please, and if you come to Sekindi, please stop by. At least I'll give you water. But as for courage, people talk about speaking truth to power. That's a mistake. Truth is power. You speak truth to authority. The authority is the one that carries it out. But once you deny the truth, then you don't have courage again. The powerful ones are those who speak the truth. He spoke truth. And that is what we enjoy him. I won't ask him to write because those I asked to write, so others must tell him to write. I was on Jerry's back every day. Whenever I see, where is the book? The last time I said, he said, Dana, I virtually finished. The next thing I heard, we're carrying him away to the military cemetery. So I don't want to tell him to write. So other people must tell him. But before I go, I had a beautiful song. I'd be hearing the song, but I love the Winnie Bell remix. And I'm also thanking the people here, the authorities for having asked me to come. But the youth choir, I want to dance off the stage, knowing that the spirit is coming up. The business is coming. Play the Atta remix again, please. Can I hear that Winnie Bell Youth Choir?
Thank you very much. Kindly take seats. And thank you, our chair, Nana Kobanan Ketsia, the fifth Esikado hymn, for wrapping it up so beautifully for us this evening. All we have to do is have the vote of thanks, and they will be performed by the MP for Ododo, Sani Lante Vanderpoy, for the vote of thanks. Let's bring him up on the stage.
Thank you very much. With my senior old boy as a chairman, I don't have to prolong my vote of thanks, else I'll be asked to stoop. So, on behalf of the planning committee, the advisory board, and members of the Atta Mills, guest speaker, Mr. Kwame Pienim, the Kofi Abochi, my lecturer at the faculty, and also my big sister at the local government institute. Former Second Lady, Madam Mr. Atta, and also to our guest speaker, Mr. Kwame Pienim, the theme speakers, Kofi Abochi, my lecturer at the faculty, and also my big sister at the local government institute. and Padigo, my senior in athletics. And all those who have come, especially the representative of the Chief Justice, Justice Yule Kolendi, Nime, Name, Nananom, and my family, the Atta Mills family, to have come all the way from Cape Coast to be here for this program. Our members of the diplomatic community, we thank you very much for coming. And to all of us who have made this day a successful one. I've never thought we could have such a wonderful program. And to the great consultant, the great leader, and the chief conspirator, the Palanquin carriers, Dr. Manibuama, and all members of the planning committee, CC, Sami Atta Mills, Nanoye, hardworking Nanoye, Ale Segbefia, Emilia Arthur, Dr. Eriko Sewusu, and all those who have made it possible, especially to our Vice Chancellor and Head of the Economics Department for giving us this wonderful facility, our media, and also our technical staff. We thank you very much. Tomorrow, let's all understand that we have begun the rebirth of Professor John Evans Atta Mills. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Many thanks, Mr. Neelante van der Pooy. Before the closing prayer, quick announcement. After the closing prayer, kindly remain seated, and the protocol team from Postline Events and Protocol will guide us out row by row. We are still observing the safety protocols in the COVID era. At this point, I'd like to call on Sheikh Ibrahim Issa Bansi, Deputy Imam of Shia, Ghana, to do us the honors of the closing prayer, and after which we will remain seated, and then the Postline team will take us out row by row. Assalamu alaikum.
صلوا على النبي الكريم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم انصرنا فإنك خير الناصرين وافتح لنا فإنك خير الفاتحين وارزقنا فإنك أنت خير الرازقين واهدنا ونجنا من القوم الظالمين بسر الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد آمين إن شاء الله.
Amin Sheikh, thank you. So let's rise for Yenara Assassini, led by the Winneba Youth Choir. Kindly take your seats, and the protocol team from Crossline will guide us out of the hall. Kindly take your seats, and the protocol team from Crossline will guide us out. It was live on Wizard TV, TV3, Metro TV, TV XYZ, CTV, and on Power FM, Class FM, Al Hotel FM. This has been the launch of John Evans Atta Mills Memorial Heritage 10 years on, the man John Evans Atta Mills, coming to you from the CD Conference Center at the University of Ghana. It's been a pleasure. Wishing you a very good evening, and God bless till we meet again some other day. My name is Kafui Day. Pleasure to have been your master of ceremonies. Good night. God bless you all.